Hi there, and welcome to Ophea's first office hours of the 24-25 school year. This session focuses on the updates to the Ontario Physical Activity, Safety Standards and Education, or OPASSE, in the area of supervision. My name is Rebecca Richardson, and I'm an instructional program lead for health and physical education and the arts in the Halton District School Board, as well as a member of the CPAC Advisory Committee for OPASSE. I turn it over to my colleague, Karen, to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Karen Trotter. I am the consultant for student health and well-being with the Conseil Scolaire Catholique Providence, and I am also a member of the CPAC Advisory Committee.
Thanks, Karen. Always great to join you in these sessions. Just as before we get started, a little bit of a note and a reminder that the information shared during the office hours is based on the updated safety standards for the 24-25 school year. And a reminder, it's important to check your school board policies and procedures for safety, as there may be some differences across the province.
All right, so today's office hour session will focus on preparing school boards and schools for the changes that have been made to the supervision section of OPASSE for the 2024-2025 school year. Supervision is a key component that contributes to a culture of safety-mindedness and risk management approach. This office hours session is intended to support school boards and schools with the updates that have been made to OPASSE. More specifically, to increase their understanding of the rationale for the updates, to increase their awareness of the new definitions added to support implementation of the standards, and to explore the updates that have been made for each type of supervision and the practical application to school board and school implementation. All right, so let's do an overview of supervision. So when it comes to supervision, our role as educators is to be present throughout the entirety of the activity and supervise the participants for management and direction as per the type of supervision stated on the activity page, and to communicate to the outside provider, when applicable, their role in monitoring students throughout the entirety of the activity. There are currently and will continue to be 3 types of supervision included in the OPASSE safety standards for 2024. The revisions provide much more detailed information about what each type of supervision entails. The type of supervision identified for various components of the activities is based on the level of inherent risk for that specific activity. One type of supervision is no less vigilant than the other. It is simply based on the activity requirements and risk of injury for that activity. You will notice that supervision can now transition from one type to another based on the components of the activity. The OPASSE supervision component had undergone a stringent review in order to clarify the roles and responsibilities of teachers and other adult individuals who may be engaged to support instruction and monitor activities, and to update supervision safety standards for currency, alignment, and specificity in order to continue to provide information and direction to teachers to minimize and prevent injury. Updates to OPASSE may be made as a result of the evolving nature of physical activity opportunities in an educational setting. Students are exposed to a greater range of physical activity, both in the school environment, in the community, and via outside activity provider facilities. The revised supervision standards take into account these diverse settings. The number of activities contained in OPASSE has also grown extensively since the last review of supervision. The review included the consideration of the inherent risks in similar activities and aligning the supervision standards, the alignment between settings to provide greater clarity and reduce potential gaps, and the alignment for appropriateness for elementary versus secondary with consideration for grade 7 to 10 schools. Finally, the updates provide greater information and direction on the role of the teachers and individuals supporting safety and skill instruction and monitoring of an activity. They are attentive to the type of supervision appropriate for various components of an activity and provide more detailed direction for the location and direction the teacher provides. Yearly changes to OPASSE may occur based on questions and concerns brought forward by users like yourselves, changes to industry and sport standards, in response to accidents and court rulings, or simply a review to ensure standards are current, aligned, and specific. All the activities in OPASSE have been reviewed and revised based on the revision to the language and specificity of the revised types of supervision. Over to you, Beth.
Thanks, Karen. Before we dig into the three types of supervision and some of the changes for the 24-25 school year, let's take a quick look at some of the definitions. Some of them will be a refresh reminder, and some of them will be new to us. All right, so looking at the two definitions that we have on the screen now for supervision and supervisor, you'll note that these are not new, but reminders and can be found on the supervision pages of each of the activities. When we look at supervision, we're talking about the vigilant overseeing of an activity for management or direction. Activities, facilities, and equipment have inherent risks, but the more effectively they are supervised, the safer they become. And the definition of a supervisor in OPASSE is defined as a teacher, vice principal, or principal with current certification from the Ontario College of Teachers and under contract by the school or school board. This supervisor is legally responsible for the student. So a couple of questions arise here in terms of who can supervise. Again, we have the definition of that supervisor, an individual certified by OCT and on staff of the board. Again, this applies for also those that are looking to supervise or take responsibility for an intramural activity. When we look to answer the question of who can coach and take responsibility for a team, the definition of a coach is any individual appointed by a principal or designate. However, any coach that is not a teacher or administrator applied by the board or with a teaching certificate needs to have approval by the principal. This individual must also to the board's volunteer process and must be signed at a coach liaison who is a teacher with OCT qualifications and employed by the school board. So these definitions have been added to all activities and are new and referenced within the safety standards. With the evolving nature of physical activity and the goal of providing our students with the diverse activity options, we sometimes require access to expert resources in the immediate community or through a contracted outside activity provider. As a result, it was important to identify and clarify the roles and responsibilities of the individuals who support student engagement in physical activity, but are not a teacher or administrator employed by the school board. When we look to the definition of an instructor, a qualified instructor, this is an individual who has the required skills, expertise, and our certification for teaching activity that the teacher may not have. The teacher assigns this instructor, qualified instructor, the responsibilities of providing safety and initial skill instruction and monitoring for the duration of the activity. The teacher must be present and circulating through the activity for the entirety of all of the activities. When we look at a volunteer, we define a volunteer as a responsible adult, again approved by the principal, under the direction of a teacher, and has been instructed on their responsibilities with the students for the physical activity, including monitoring for student behavior. Again, a reminder to always refer to your school board policies on volunteers when assisting students in physical activity. Our final set of definitions, again new and to provide clarity, are around the words monitoring and the monitor. A monitor is an individual who assists the teacher with a group of students, and this could include a volunteer, an instructor or qualified instructor, or an outside service provider. Their responsibility is to monitor student behaviors for the duration of the activity. When monitoring, we look to observe, identify, act, and report. Observe with attention to detail the actions of the student, identify the student and the potentially unsafe behavior, act by taking appropriate actions to safeguard the students and other, examples, stopping the activity, and reporting the name of the student and the unsafe behavior to the teacher for further management and direction.
So let's now take a look at the different types of supervision. So direct supervision, on-site supervision, and in-the-area supervision take into consideration the level of risk, which is related to the number of participants, the skill level of the participants, the age and developmental stage of participants, the type of equipment used, and the environmental conditions. The types described are not hierarchical, but represent the type of supervision that activities require and the type of supervision that is inherently possible. As previously mentioned, some activities in OPASSE transition from one type of supervision to another type of supervision. For example, from direct to on-site supervision or from on-site to in-the-area supervision. Information provided in the revisions provides much more detail about what each type of supervision entails. One type of supervision, again, is no less vigilant than the other types. It is simply based on the activity requirements and the risk of injury. If you are familiar with the previous types of supervision listed in OPASSE, you may have noticed that constant visual supervision has now changed to direct supervision. And Beck is going to give us a little bit more information about that.
All right, the first place we'll start is with constant visual supervision, and you'll notice that that is a change in the 24-25 school year to direct supervision. That definition will read that direct supervision requires that the teacher is physically present at the activity, providing visual and verbal oversight for management and direction of both the activity and student. Here you'll note the greater detail in the definition specific to the location and actions of the teacher. No other activity can occur when part of the activity or the entire activity itself is under direct supervision and there is only one teacher supervising. Where a qualified instructor is providing the safety and initial skill instruction and monitoring for one activity and requires the teacher to be present in that activity for management and direction, again, this requires direct supervision on behalf of the teacher. When looking at the specific activity pieces under supervision, you'll note that direct supervision can occur during the entire duration of the activity, during the setup or takedown of equipment, during the safety and initial skill instruction, during the performance or practice of the activity skill, and when activities transition from direct supervision to on-site supervision. Karen will share with you the on-site supervision updates in a moment, but take a look here at 3 of the examples we provided where direct supervision occurs. In the example of tug of war, direct supervision is required during the safety and initial skill instruction, but for follow activities can switch to on-site supervision. In the case of archery, direct supervision is required when students are on the shooting line, facing the target, knocking the arrow on the bowstring, and shooting arrows. Our final example looks at cheerleading, where direct supervision is required for all elevated inversions, aerial rotations, and inverted skill, and for the duration of these skills. However, for other skills, on-site supervision is required. Karen, over to you for the updates on on-site supervision.
The original definition of on-site supervision has the teacher present but not necessarily constant viewing one specific activity. There could be momentary presence in adjoining rooms, for example, an equipment room to the gymnasium, and this is considered part of on-site supervision. In the revised definition, the teacher is present at one location where the student activity takes place. So, for example, a gymnasium, a sports field, a climbing wall, an outside activity provider facility, or possibly a campsite, and is accessible for providing management and direction of the physical activity and student safety. So where there is more than one activity in one location, the teacher is circulating between the activities and is accessible for management and direction. Momentary presence in adjoining rooms, as mentioned above, an equipment room, an outdoor storage shed, a boathouse, is also considered to be on-site supervision. And a qualified instructor is providing the safety and initial skill instruction and monitoring for an activity or a combination of activities at one location, and the teacher is present and circulating and accessible for management and direction. An activity may be under on-site supervision during the entire duration of the activity, during the safety and initial skill instruction, with activities using multiple stations while the teacher is circulating, when combining 2 or more activities at one location while the teacher is circulating, and when activities transition from on-site supervision to in-the-area supervision. Again, we have some examples to support. So let's say badminton, soccer, tag games. On-site supervision is required during the safety and initial skill instruction, and then would transition to in-the-area supervision. In the second example, cross-country running, we have on-site supervision required during the safety and initial skill instruction. However, when the students are practicing running at a location away from the teacher, then in the area supervision is required. And in the third example of wrestling or self-defense, on-site supervision is required only after students can demonstrate proficiency in those skills.
All right, let's take a look at our third and final type of supervision in the area supervision. The new definition will read, the teacher is located in proximity to a combination of locations where the student activities take place. They are circulating and they are accessible, providing management and direction of the physical activity and student safety. In the area supervision occurs while the teacher is circulating between various activities occurring at separate locations and is readily accessible, or the location of the teacher is communicated to all the students. In the area supervision also occurs where a qualified instructor is providing the safety and skill instruction and is monitoring at a combination of locations. The teacher is located in proximity to where the student activities take place. They are circulating between the activity locations and are accessible for management and direction. It's also important to note that in the area supervision, students may be out of sight for a period of time. An activity or component of an activity is under in the area supervision, where the same activity is located in separate locations. A great example of this is track and field, cross-country running, and alpine skiing. In the area supervision occurs when two or more activities under in the area supervision occur in separate locations. This could be badminton, table tennis, handball. It occurs where the skill application of the activity takes place at different locations from the coach. Example, cross-country running when the students are out on the trail, skiing, or cycling. In the area supervision occurs where activities are occurring in double or triple gymnasiums and where more than one qualified instructor is providing activities at a combination of locations. Some great examples you'll see below is outdoor education canoeing. In the area supervision is required when trained students are launching and removing canoes from the water while being monitored by a qualified instructor, as well as when they are portaging canoes and equipment. In the example of badminton and table tennis, both occurring in separate locations, in the area supervision is required when the two activities occur in separate locations and the teacher is present and able to circulate between those two activities.
Okay, well, today's office hour session provided an overview of the changes that have been made to the supervision section of OPASSE for the 2024-2025 school year. The session highlighted the rationale for the updates, the terminology and associated definitions that are included on the activity pages, and the updated types of supervision, such as direct, on-site, and in the area, how they can transition from one type to another, the circumstances where they apply, and practical examples.
As always, we thank you for joining us for the office hours sponsored by Ophea, and we encourage you to connect with us at Ophea. The information is on your screen there. You can find us at ophea.net. You can always email us at info@ophea.net. We have a Toronto 416 number and a toll-free number. And we actually encourage you to follow us on all the social media platforms, Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Don't forget to visit ophea.net and sign up for your e-connection today to stay more in tune for safety standard updates.